Alright, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we have a 21 Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. For the week we are Fortified, Tornadoes, and Bolstering, and this was a pretty good key. So before we get into things, I kind of wanted to revisit talents now that I've had a week to play with everything and talk about what I've come up with and what I've discovered or whatever. So on the priest side, nothing has changed. But on the discipline side, I kind of realized some things after playing it that needed some change. And in my last video, I wouldn't go as far to say the information I gave was inaccurate, but I think the best Shadow Covenant is going to be one that can adapt to a situation. So what I'm noticing is from pull to pull, my rotation ends up being slightly different. And I do actually think there's a lot of wiggle room within your window to have variance. There are a couple things that I think are more rigid, and we'll get there in a second. But on the discipline side, what I'm realizing is the synergy between Mindbender and Shadow Covenant is every 30 seconds we need to have our Mindbender ready. And we're going to do that by casting our atonement spells. So Shadow Covenant is kind of like 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off. And in that 15 seconds, our number one priority is get our Mindbender back. So I noticed with Long Rapture, although I love that spell, that's an additional 5 seconds that I'm not casting my atonement spells. And I was just creating a larger gap of uptime. So I've also dropped Painful Punishment. And the reason is because I've gone into Abyssal Reverie. Reverie? I always will love the Long Rapture, but I think losing the trifecta with the Crystalline Reflection and Aegis of Wrath, it's really not as powerful as it used to be, and it's actually kind of a hindrance when it comes to the Mindbender build. And so that being said, in a build where we have to rely on our atonement spells, that's why I've gone into the Abyssal Reverie, so they can kind of just do their job for me while I'm farming my Mindbender back. And for pretty much any build you choose, a handful of your points will end up going defensively. And I think this is a defensive area that really enables my offense. So that's about all I've changed. My windows here are still 15 seconds long. And yeah, so that's talents. So I wanted to revisit rotation and what an optimal Shadow Covenant window looks like. Now that I've played with it a little bit, I have a different opinion. And I think it's largely going to be dependent on what's happening in combat that defines your specific rotation. And I think there's a lot of wiggle room in the rotation, being that a handful of our spells we only get once anyway. You can really cast those wherever you want. But mainly I want to first talk about how you enter into your Shadow Covenant. And again, I think pull by pull, different situations will call for different things. But I actually think more oftentimes than not, the better play is to lead with your Mindbender, then Shadow Covenant, then Schism. And what I've learned, I thought our Mindbender was only going to be around 15 seconds, but he's more like 17 or 18 seconds. So he will last for the entire DPS window, and casting him within the DPS window is kind of like a dead global, when we definitely need to be pumping our DPS spells. So we want to cast him first, followed by Shadow Covenant, followed by Schism. And Schism is the main cell here. It's highest in importance, which is why we cast it last, for the most part. But then that being said, I think the only really rigid part of the rotation is after your Schism, your first spell has to be Mind Blast, and your second spell has to be Penance. And that's because we need to get both of those on cooldown in order to hit this optimized and maximized window. Which again, my opinion there hasn't changed, but I'll revisit it. An optimal window is going to have 4 Torments and 2 Penance procs of Harsh Discipline. So what I was realizing is my 3 Mind Blasts and Death, I can get those fairly consistently, but I noticed I was dropping my second harsh discipline because of a failed ramp. So I always watch my videos back ahead of time and try and analyze what I could do better. And I think that was definitely my biggest dropped spell, was my second penance proc. But anyway, back to the rigidity of the sequence. So first has to be Mind Blast. And if we don't cast that first, we won't get our third. So every window has to have 3 Mind Blasts to be optimal. So we lead with our Mind Blast, and then for the same reason, we have to go straight into Penance. We have to put Penance on cooldown in order to get it back within our window. So from there, things are a lot more loose. I would say your third Mind Blast is somewhat rigid. You have to cast it like right when it comes available. There's not much time to delay it. But your second Mind Blast, you can put that wherever you want. Mind Games wherever you want. Star. So there's a lot of wiggle room, and I think you really have to play to just like what's going on. The sequence for us, the big sell for us as Mindbender build is Schism, followed by Mind Blast, followed by Penance. So we want 2 Penance procs, 3 Mind Blasts, and at least 1 Death. And that gives us 4 Torments and just a lot of single target damage with that Dark Reprimand. It is a powerhouse of a spell. I will flash my DPS profile at the end of this and we can like look at it. But the only way to make that better is with a 5th Inescapable Torment. And all of this is talking about just a basic pull, no less, no PI, just your standard DPS window. You should have those 3 Mind Blasts. Quick caveat, if you're in a haste window, you can get like 4 or 5, so you need to really just be prioritizing those spells. And I think where a lot of skill is going to come in is when you can pick out mobs in execute range to get extra torments. But yeah, so I think that's it for the talents. We definitely will talk about all of this more as we move along. But I wanted to quickly just talk about my new action bar HUD right here. So these are just action bars. I use Dominoes. I think it's a very basic add-on. I just like the freedom of having buttons over having like a WeakR set up. And I thought it was about time for a change because I had the same setup probably since BFA when I wasn't that experienced with Priest. And I feel like moving forward, I really needed some action bars that assisted me rather than just things I were like comfortable with. So I thought a slight reorder would do me good. And I think using a couple of different sizes within your bar can really help guide your eyes to what you need to see. So in theory, most important are my 3 spells in the middle. That's kind of like my trinity for DPS. And I have this WeakR though that glows the button, thanks to Yasmin, our tank. He helped me with that. But I have these 3 buttons glow dead center of my screen because I need to have all 3 of these light up before I can go into my window. And what I noticed early on is I was entering into my Covenant window without my Mindbender ready, or without Schism ready, or any combination of that. So I wanted to bring these all central next to each other so I could easily monitor all 3 of their cooldowns and kind of look at it as one unit. But then I have my Mind Blast and Death near each other, obvious reasons, and then Penance and Mind Games next to each other for obvious reasons. And then I have like my little resources right here. And I thought to bring PI out of my bar, just one less thing to clutter. I can see it with OmniCD, but it is kind of like a standalone type button, so I brought it off. I thought that would help me see it when it's available too, and I think it has. Let me just cast it. But I think this is a really nice action bar HUD, and I've had a lot of good plays with it. I think it's been a little bit of a learning curve getting used to something new, but I think going into 10.0.5, reordering my bars to kind of favor my Mindbender and Schism and Shadow Covenant, I just think it was well overdue, and I think this is a great change. But last thing I want to say before we get going here is my channel's had a lot of growth lately, and I really appreciate anyone who's tuned in. I didn't realize I would rediscover a passion I had with Warcraft until COVID hit, but I've had a lot of fun getting back into it and delving deep into the world of discipline. And it's been really cool to see, people responding well to my content recently. So in the same vein, someone called me out for having a bad mic because I use a headset. And I understand the importance of high quality audio. And I just figured it would take some time for someone to call me out. But it's happened, and I've bought a new mic. It's staring at me on the floor right now. I wanted to use it for this video, but I just honestly didn't have the patience to do it. So we're defaulting to my old methods. But something to look forward to in next video is you might hear me better, less popping. Yeah, I think that's everything. So we're going to talk about more of this as we go. But yeah, just the last reminder, when it comes to an optimal rotation, we need 2 penance procs, that's the big one, 3 mind blasts, and at least 1 death. So anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and clip over. All right, so here we go. We're at the top of the dungeon. It's always a good time to plan out where your PIs are going to go. And I forget what I do. I have watched this about 1.5 times already, but I forgot where my PIs go. I think I hit the Druid a lot, maybe the Mage some. But it's so wonderful playing with a Druid. I asked him to please kindly innervate my Raptures, because that's our biggest mana dump. And I even passed him a weak card, help me see my Raptures. Yep, things to note. Again, I can't stress this enough. We need to get 2 penance procs in our window and 4 torments. And I think most commonly people are going to be dropping the second penance. And that second penance is a lot of damage. So it's really important to ramp properly. We need to go into our Shadow Covenant with a penance procced with at least a +1 on a Harsh Discipline. So here we go. First pull. I drop PI because I can. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism. And for this one, I did not farm my Harsh Discipline properly. So off the top, I've already dropped my second penance proc. But I think I got all 4 torments there. And there's really no reason to hold back on your Mindbender and Shadow Covenant. It's just a 30-second cooldown. It couldn't get any shorter. So dump that spell every chance you get. That was 33.3 thousand per second. Pretty good. So it's going to be kind of hard to judge this from my perspective or even your perspective, what goes on in that window, but just know we're aiming for 2 penances, 4 torments, 3 blasts. So open with dots as always. It's really nice to open with a penance too, to go ahead and spread your dots. I Barrier as our modifier spell for this pull. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism, Mind Blast. And for this one, I also didn't have my Harsh Discipline farmed properly. So I put 2 Mind Blasts in a row just to proc my 1 penance I was going to get. And I do that some too. If I fail to get my penance proc properly, I don't see a problem in putting your Mind Blast back to back. But as long as your Harsh Discipline is done properly, you want your penance to be your second cast. And a real power play for our new build is being able to farm dot activity. So I use KUI Nameplates, I think everyone knows that, but it's really great for monitoring our 1 dot. Because that's all we got really, there's just 1 dot to monitor. So you want to be using your penance to spread your dot, and you want to be tracking where your dots are in order to hit your expiation talent. Yeah, and on those little bugs upstairs, I didn't even schism. It wasn't necessary. I felt like it was like a waste of time. So I Shadow Covenanted straight into Mindbender and hit my Torment spells. Also in these pulls, none of the casts got off, but there is a Dispel that is very, very important to see. and I've also built it into my UI to hear it. And the reason I give it so much attention is there is no cast. It's an instant cast, and it's a dot that trucks. So there's no way to see where it's going, there's no way to get ahead of it. It's totally a reactionary type mechanic. But none of them went off. And right there, I didn't have any good examples of it, but I'm bringing the Shadowmoon cast from the enemy on my screen as that red bar. That is my fear opportunity for those pulls. And here we go, first boss, non-tyrannical. We just dropped our PI on trash, so we're not going to have it here, but that's fine. Basically all we want to do is run our Shadow Covenant non-stop, but not forget it's a healing cooldown as well. So a Penance proc farmed with a +1, Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism, Mind Blast, Penance. Whew, that's a tongue twister. So I don't like to do it, but casting a Radiance in the middle of your window is a very valid play that kind of leans defensively. Our DPS window is 15 seconds, and that's a long time to not worry about atoning people. So if you Radiance in the middle of your window, it's totally fine. Yep, and here's our second Shadow Covenant. Had a Penance proc banked. And that one was really good. I had 2 7 procs of Dark Reprimand. And in this off time, I'm just pumping as many atonement spells as possible. Obviously switching to the add when you can. And fights that have adds like this, it's our one opportunity within a boss to maximize on our Shadow Word Death. So try and get your deaths on the opponents. You can get more DPS that way. So here's my next Shadow Covenant. Radiance in the middle. And that window was even better than the first. I got both of my Penance procs, and I got a 5th Torment because we were in execute range. So it's always nice when you have an overlap with Mindbender and an execute range, because you're going to get one more Torment. But that's also something you can get in trash pulls if you can spot your execute ranges. So in this pull I have a little weak aura that helps me know if I'm being fixated. God, I need to change that sound though. Okay, so here's my Rapture queued up with Innervate, totally free. And yeah, you'll notice my unit frame glowed white. It's just because I forgot to turn off my weak aura that I gave to the Druid. So that's just marking my Rapture. Yeah, that Shadow Covenant wasn't great either. I think I dropped 1 Torment, and I only got 1 Penance, I believe. I might get better at calling that as we get going, but I think it's going to be hard overall, even if you're looking at my global tracker. Oh wow, that was some like Legend of Korra shit right there. But even if I don't call it properly now or ever, just know you're aiming for 2 Penance procs, 4 Torments, 3 Blasts. I probably sound like a broken record by now, but that's all you got to do for a maximized DPS window.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yikes. So this got really spooky. We talked about it after the key, and we think there's an aggro bug here that killed the Druid, put us in a difficult spot. Yeah. Yikes. That was another bad Shadow Covenant window. Only 1 Penance proc. I think I dropped 1 Torment as well. I do think it's important to note you don't need perfect windows to do good for your group. The way I'm looking at it, though, is I'm aiming for high DPS. And when I lose that second Dark Reprimand, or if I lose the third Mind Blast, it's a big drop in DPS. So although it might not have failed to keep the group alive,
4,
I see it as a lot of DPS dropped. And also I made this little weak aura that glows my screen purple in that window. I think it's kind of fun to have like a little interactive moment like that and turn my screen purple. And I also thought it's a good way just to track that cooldown. So another reason while we're sitting here, why you don't want to open with Shadow Covenant is because your second Dark Reprimand will miss the Shadow Covenant if you're casting it first. It's not long enough. So you want Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, then Schism, and your second penance will hit in your Covenant window. So our Mage was excelling. I was looking at the numbers, so I gave him our PI. And I'm just getting my Harsh Discipline +1. Mindbender, Covenant, Schism, Blast, Penance, Blast. So that's a really good rotation as long as you have an active dot. Yeah, that was a really good window. I got all of the Torments and I got 2 large Dark Reprimands. That was great. And then this little phase, there's not much to it, but this is the best time for our Rapture.
5,
So, yep, you want to track that with Bigwigs.
1.
Ooh. Yeah, so track that with Bigwigs. That's a great time for Rapture, is the Soul Shred. And I think the play there is just to stay in the Shadow Realm. I think that will negate the Thundering. But we all came out, we all had the Thundering mechanic, and I gripped someone as a last-ditch attempt to not die. And through the air, he cleared with someone else, leaving me wide open. So that was just sad. Thankfully, Yasmin came in for the recovery. And I think that was a lot better of a Shadow Covenant too. And you'll see on Yasmin, he'll turn a flashing white color. That is when he's getting hit with the Tank Slam. So Schism, Mind Blast, Penance. Mind Blast.
5.
Oh man, I missed it.
3,
Yeah, so I was going for that ideal window, but that mechanic kind of hurt me a little bit. Uh-oh, and we're stuck. So the most important thing is when you're going into your window is having that penance proc with a +1 or a +2. So basically all that looks like is a handful of globals, but it's really important you're paying attention to that stack number, because anything less than, you're not going to get your second proc in your window. So as my opener, it looks like I'm atoning with Rapture just because this is a heavy pull, and I'm ramping for my Shadow Covenant. So a ramp looks like some dots and some Harsh Discipline spells. Favoring Star here, that's a really good AoE spell. And that was another second penance proc that was dropped. The only thing that didn't happen was I did not have a full ramp, banking a proc with a +1. Ouch. So those guys zapped me to death. They were bolstered, so that's really sad. To be honest, I don't fully know the ins and outs of that pull. I'm not sure if that's something I even could have prevented. Possibly a fear bomb. But okay, let's watch this pull. I know this is a little bit different, and I remember it being different. So I open with Covenant, put a dot out, Mind Bender, and then I open with Star. So a lot of these guys are going to die prematurely. So the high priority spell was the Star because it's not capped, and my Torment spells are capped. And then I didn't even cast Schism until late. That was on purpose, just to favor my DPS spells. But I got my Schism out for the Mind Games. And it's really good practice to penance mobs with dots to spread the dot. I am hoping that Blizzard fixes that in our talent soon. It'd be really great to be able to rely on that fully. Okay, open with Mindbender, Covenant, Schism, Blast. And the rotation was good, but we had a missed kick. Hurt really bad. But thankfully, casting some atonements in my window helped us recover. Arguably, that was a little bit of a risky pull. The better way to ramp going into your window is having at least 3 to 4 atonements out. I think that's plenty of coverage, and unfortunately no one was atoned because I wasn't anticipating that mechanic to go off. I think I had a couple people atoned. You'd have to go back and look. But we have to take these couple of spiders. That's just part of the route. Mindbender, Covenant, Schism. Star. So there's no reason I couldn't have ramped better on that one. But that was also a partial miss on my Covenant window. I think it's just due to inexperience. This is a very different type of game style, gameplay for me. And I do think it's quite hard. But that's one of the beauties that you get with my channel, is we learn this together. Also, I will say, I think I was a little bit tired at this point. But pay no attention to the fact that my PI has so much uptime. Maybe I should bring it back up to my bars, I don't know. But I definitely think I dropped a PI somewhere. Yikes. And so when it comes to key binding for your DPS window, it's really important that you have key binds that are easy to hit in sequence. And you might not have noticed there what happened, but I accidentally hit my keybinds out of sequence. And I think it was an honest mistake. It was just like I pressed the wrong thing, but I did mess up my opener. I shot my star out early when I meant to Schism or something. So I have a perfect ramp this time. Let's see what I do. Schism, Mind Blast, Penance, Star, Mind Blast. Yeah, and on this one I'm waiting to cast my Shadow Word Death because I was anticipating that execute range. And we got that 5th Torment. So when it comes to your Torments, standard is going to be 4. Whenever you can get that 5th is nice. And you're only going to get 5+ with a haste buff or with an execute shot. So it's really important to see where those execute ranges are. I think KUI is great for highlighting that with a color shift. And yeah, that was the Shaman that just got ate up. So I think I was perfectly loaded on this one. A Penance proc with a +1. And I think anyone watching this channel understands why. But the reason you only need a +1 on your Harsh Discipline is because our Mind Blasts, which are priority, will proc the Harsh Discipline. So we're expecting 3 Mind Blasts. All we need is a +1 on the Harsh Discipline. the 3 Mind Blasts will proc the second Harsh Discipline.
5, 4,
A lot of these talent points and spell names are the biggest tongue twisters, so thank you for your patience. I'm doing my best with all these nouns. So here we go, we have the boss, not much to it. Let's see if I fucking cast PI or not. Yeah, PI the Druid this time. I have my ramp perfect. But this is where I noticed I don't have my Mindbender yet. But there he is. So I'm getting my penance back in the right place. Whoa. So I thought about it later. One way you could really maximize DPS if you wanted to be like a narc or whatever that word is you could probably hit your Mindbender on those other guys. They are in execute range. So Mind Blast, Penance. Yeah, it was unfortunate there's a mechanic under the mechanic. So,
4,
also I'm noticing...
2, 1.
Yikes. And I think that saved the pull. But in Shadow Covenant windows, where I'm going to be short 1 cast on a Penance proc, I'm dropping Divine Star and putting in a Smite, or putting in a Solace. And that's because I think the DPS and HPS you're going to get from a Penance proc is going to be more than the Divine Star. So if it's like a single target pull, I might drop Divine Star. Conversely, if it's an AoE pull, I favor the Divine Star. So it's all situational. I'm probably going to say that 100 times, but pull by pull, I think the best thing you can do is read the situation. Some pulls don't require Schism. Some pulls don't require Star. So it just really depends on what's going on. So my Harsh Discipline is perfect. Schism. I had to lead with Death for movement, and that's where you'll see sometimes you have to just play to what's going on. And unfortunately, I think what that meant for my window is I only got 1 Mind Blast, 1 of 3. So I'm actually really excited to play with this more and get better at it. I was talking to Yasmin, our tank, about it, and I estimated I'm only nailing half of my windows right now. And I said this before, but I think even a partially missed window is good enough for a group. I just want that maximized DPS. That's what I'm here for. So anyway, we have this small pull. As an opener, always go with dots, and then atonements, and then boom. PI on the mage because he popped. So my Harsh Discipline was not procced yet, so I open with 2 Mind Blasts just to kind of proc my penance. Yeah, I throw in a Smite just for the Harsh Discipline. And that pull barely made baseline. So because I had PI, I was able to get my 3rd Mind Blast in, but only 1 penance because I did not ramp properly.
5, 4, 3.
But I will say with PI, God, we're cutting that close every time. With PI, I should test this on a dummy and I'll get back to everyone. But with PI, you can get a 4th Mind Blast if you spam. So open with Rapture here, not a bad idea. It's going to cover more than 1 of these attacks. Pain Set just to be friendly. And in those type attacks, I favor my Rapture shields on myself and DPS. It's not a bad idea to hit the tank too, but he will survive more than others. So I'm trying to get into my ramp here. Things are dotted, things are atoned. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism. And that was one where I had to open with Penance just because I had to move, but that's fine. Yeah, and I don't think that was the first time in this dungeon, and I know it won't be the last time, but I'm accidentally dropping my death in my Mindbender window, which there's no reason to drop that one. You know, it's easy to miss a second penance or a third Mind Blast, but there's no reason you should miss a death. So I do think your action bar HUD needs to be lined up in a way that helps you see that, because that's freebie damage. And you'll notice I kind of have it clumped up with my window, so I think that's a good place for death. So going into this boss, we have plenty of time. Not much to him. Ramping my Harsh Discipline up to a proc +1. Mindbender, Covenant, Schism, Blast, Penance, Blast. So as long as that's your first 3 spells, you're in a good place. Blast, Penance, Blast. Even your second blast has wiggle room, but that's not a bad sequence of 3 spells. And I think I got everything I needed on that one, so that's good. It's not a bad idea to focus the skeleton. You know, as a healer, you're not going to be doing, you know, nearly as much damage as everyone else, but it's just important to play the mechanics, and your DPS is not negligible, so yeah, play the mechanics. So I'm ramping for my second window. Here we go. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism, Mind Blast, Penance. Boom. Second Mind Blast. Man, that was a bad one. So I was really excited that I helped the mage there. He ice blocked near the damage. He was full health, but he was literally right on that node, so I gripped him, so that was really nice. But I dropped my Shadow Word Death, and I think I dropped a Mind Blast, and gosh, wasn't good. I have a lot of room to improve, but I am excited for the journey. So ramping for my next window, here we go. Schism, Mind Blast, Penance, Mind Blast. And then at that point we're pretty much set. And our second penance. So that's what I've been waiting for, is 2 penances, 4 torments. That's all I need to be happy. And something you might have noticed by now, but I've not mentioned it, is I've brought my Mindbender UI front and center of my screen, that little round button. And I've done that with Move Anything, which is kind of discontinued at the moment, but I found a bootleg version. I'm not going to promote that because it is copyrighted. But there is no in-game API to track the timer on a totem like that, so the native button is going to be the best thing. And yeah, so there we go. That was a 21 Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. Not the hardest dungeon, but that was my first 21. It got me +10. I feel like I've been lagging behind a little bit when it comes to IO and gear. I've just been like really busy IRL, to be honest. And something I'm really excited for is finally getting 4-piece, because I think that'll be really nice in place of Wheel and Woe. But I am excited to get my gear going, and I'm excited to get my IO back up, and I'm really looking forward to playing with the spec. So now here's the cool part, or the important part. Let's glance at my DPS profile. So Purge the Wicked is on top, solidifying it as a very important spell. Dot uptime is a real important part of our game, using penance to our advantage, keeping dots on all enemies. And then you'll also see Mind Blast is a huge driver for us, so we have to keep that thing rolling. And here's our Dark Reprimand. And if you compare it to our regular penance, it's almost double, which really just goes to show how much it can do. And I missed pretty much all of my second Dark Reprimand. So as soon as I get better at that, I think I'm going to have a lot more DPS output. Expiation is really important talent to play to. I think there's a lot of room there to maximize. And overall, it looks like I did 25.7 thousand damage per second, which is a hell of a lot more than the 10 to 14 thousand I was doing before. So I'm really excited for this. I think this is what Discipline was supposed to be going into the expansion, but part of me feels like the developers just didn't have it fully developed. I feel like a lot of things were broken and left unattended to. So I'm really excited to get moving in this direction. I think it's actually quite a bit of a challenge compared to Boon, which I thought was hard. This is a lot harder, but I'm excited to get better at it. And I'm excited to share with you guys what I pick up along the way. So anyway, I'm having fun playing with Yasmin. It's nice to have a tank that, you know, is of similar level that you can play with. And if you have any questions, please comment below. I do my best to get back to everybody. And look forward to next video when I have better audio. But until next time, guys, Disc out.